Hi, everybody, and welcome to Interoccupy's continuing conferences on electromagnetic radiation and microwave dangers. And we're getting educated on how wireless technologies are harming the universe and everybody in it. And we're trying to figure out how much time we have left before we don't have any time. So I also wanted to say thank you for Interoccupy's continuing support of these issues. And today's agenda date is 8/20/2015, and we are really, really happy to welcome Curtis Bennett again as our guest. He's been working really hard at trying to right the wrongs of what the government and people in power have claimed to be right in terms of wireless technologies, and he's stating that the EMFs, which we already know are incredibly dangerous, and the raging forest fires and assault on everybody on the planet is just getting too intolerable to take. So I'm going to let him talk about all of this instead of me saying it. I'm going to see if there's anything else that I want to say before we continue. The only thing we need to talk about sometime is housing. So let us start from there. And welcome, Curtis. How are you?
Listen, I'm doing very well, Sandy. And something really important for your listening audience to know is, listen, we're not lobbyists of any particular kind. We are the government. We are codes and standards specific to the issue. And that's why we're reporting in our full capacity related to this. Now, just to give people this background on this is that, and again, here's what's important for people listening to this. You have to expand on this in your capacity, whatever that might be, as Sandy, you have done as an architect, understanding that, buildings have to be compliant with building code. Here's rules specific to that. We can't walk around it no matter what. Mortgages are depending on it, financing, insurance, and all the above. Now, my background is, and typically I would be working so far behind the scenes on these issues, but this required me to step up because of the complexity of the issues. My background is I'm an interprovincial journeyman electrician. Now, the significance of that is this, is that we are the Canadian and provincial government's experts specific to the utilization of the electricity produced. Electrical engineers can't do our jobs. Nobody does our jobs related to this. We do design, we install, we maintain electrical systems, we troubleshoot them, we do all the above. My second credential is I'm a building engineering technologist, which is everything related to construction from contracts to completion. My fellow graduates in that program alone are project managers for some of the biggest construction companies in the world. We're professional estimators. It's just the versatility of the program is incredible, and that includes building design. Now, my third part of this is, in 1979, I was just blessed to be working for an electrical contractor where we started to work on the implementation of infrared. Now, people have heard of infrared where you see the police videos and you see this. Well, in 1979, the portable unit still took two men to dress you, and you had to wear this gear, and it was really quite cumbersome doing those things. But the importance of this can't be overstated, because what it did is it provided professionals sight of temperature, where otherwise we use calculators, we consider it, we measure it to different degrees. It doesn't even with related to global warming. They can talk about global warming and climate change. We are blind to temperature. So the significance of seeing temperature and starting in 1979 can't be overstated, because I did my engineering program as well as my electrical certification after that fact. Now, I further want to expand on this with this. I'm an adjunct professor for accredited medical education. And what that means is this. People have said, which university are you part of? We're part of all of them. This medical education program's put on by the Integrative Health Forum Global Education Development Institute is a group of over 14,000 licensed health professionals. Now, what these guys do is they put on medical education programs for doctors, nurses, health professionals across the board because medicine evolves, medical education evolves, so doctors, nurses, etc., require ongoing, continuing medical education credits as a requirement for ongoing medical licensing. So when people said, where is this university, what university you're applicable with, this is applicable in every state and every province across the board. And even the last program we lectured in Florida, specific to causation of frequencies interfering with people, the state of Florida, the continuing education brokers wanted the program approved for all health disciplines across the board. So
wait a minute, Curtis, if we wanted to get in touch with you to inquire about how a physician or somebody can relay to a physician how to get involved in this program, how do they do that? How do they contact you or somebody?
You've actually got a letter related to that. And here's the importance of this, too, for people that know lawyers. When lawyers say, listen, we don't understand that EMF issue, we don't do this and we don't do this. Lawyers, imagine this, because laws change. Lawyers require continuing education credits legally, or they're suspended from practicing law. That's the significance of the program. Now, you guys have a letter there, Sandy. You probably have that, or that link's available on our site. But people have this where it's a letter from the health education administrator specific to the issue. She explains the accredited process. And it is so critically important that everybody across the board share that with your health professionals. Because, when the government and industry decided to just allow everybody to move forward with this EMF bombardment, they did not consult anybody, including medicine. So what they did is they've changed the scope of medical diagnosis, but they didn't tell medicine. So you've got professionals saying, I've actually had people call me and say, Curtis, my doctor told me to get the hell out of my office. If your doctor or health professional knew that this is lectured for continuing medical education credits, it's an immediate game changer, because whether they like it or not, this is now accepted and approved medical education applicable right now in North America. And I mean every state, every province. That's the importance of us even warning government. Do you understand the liability? That's the importance of us explaining to utilities. Do you understand the liability? Now, when I carry on a little bit more with this, now my background over 35 years, we started in 1979, we would analyze atomic and molecular explosions before they happen. Now, what I mean by that is this. As a thermal radiation consultant, thermal radiation pertains to everything in existence. The whole entire planet is electrical at the atomic and molecular level, whether it's a plastic chair, whether it's a plant. Everything on the periodic table is atoms and molecules with electrons, and everything is electrical. Now, temperature for us, when they talk about, you've heard, non-thermal effects aren't understood, or industry says, no, they can't prove this. There's no such thing as non-thermal effects. Temperature for us starts at minus 496 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 273 degrees Celsius, and as soon as you get any excitation of those molecules or atoms, you're going to have electrons start bouncing around, which produces heat. That's why with our work, and again, I say this, I don't need accolades for doing my job, and I am just a member of a team, but here is where governments have used our work for their standards and requests for proposals. We're professional troubleshooters at that level because seeing temperature can't be overstated. When biologists said, we can't see groundwater, it's nature's hidden treasure, we developed an imaging application so that they could see groundwater. So biologists, hydrologists, forestry and the applicable professionals could see that. In 1979, you imagine this, people have heard of Suncrude, Suncor, Esso, Dow Chemicals, manufacturing, billion-dollar industry across the board. We consulted on their electrical systems across the board, and we got to be so accurate with this that they would actually schedule their shutdowns based on our reporting, because we stopped these explosions from happening, this lost production, the loss of revenues. We are 100% troubleshooters. We are codes and standards. Now imagine this, even in 1991, the city of Edmonton, the city manager contacted me and said, you guys do infrared. He said, I want to hire you. And he said, but right now, he said, you're going to train our fire department and help them implement infrared, but right now they still hate you because they don't believe any part of it. These are, ass-kicking firefighters at that operations level. So we got injected into that, and all we did was give those incredible professionals the ability to see through smoke. We want them to go into a fire in a building where otherwise they're doing hand sweeps and foot sweeps. They're trying to hit a body. People are rolled up in carpets. They're hiding under beds. They're in closets, the pets that are there. And the idea that our fire officials are blind so that's why we implemented that. Now, where it gets sad with this and where some of this is rolled over into even what we're doing now, in 2003, there was an interface forest fire with Kelowna, British Columbia. And we were in the area at the time when there was a lightning strike and this Category 6 firestorm moved and hit Kelowna. Well, we were told to stand down because they had jurisdictional problems. We said, do you want us to track that fire through the smoke for you? And they said, it's impossible. I said, no, it's not. I said, we're not going to take over command. We're simply going to provide you sight. You can see through the smoke. We can track direction of this. And this is 2003. So in 2003, we were told to stand down. We've got jurisdictional problems. August 21st, when the fire interfaced with Kelowna, listen, we really just, here we are just still gathering information, literally jumped in front of a police car and said, it's here, you got to get them out of here. That initiated the evacuation of 15,000 people. And that's one of the biggest evacuations in Canadian history. And I say this again because we just have a job that's bigger than ourselves. Now, the sad part about that is that Premier Gordon Campbell, and again, I state him by name, on August 22nd, when the fire interfaced with the rest of Kelowna and the buildings were burning through the smoke, the people that saw that were myself, the people we were educating, and the Premier and his entourage. And Rich Coleman, I want to name him too because he's the Minister of Energy today. And what happened is we embarrassed the Premier's office, so they edited this information out of a public fire inquiry. Well, it might seem nice from a political perspective. Yesterday, 3 Washington firefighters died when that didn't necessarily need to happen. 2013, 19 Arizona firefighters and their hotshots, they died because this forest fire rolled over them. And when I got called out of Arizona and saying, could you have seen that? Yes, we could have seen that. If we couldn't have seen the guys on the ground, guess what we could have done? We would have provided thermal gradients in front of that fire for command and said, where are they? Here's the direction of the fire. Then they can do their jobs and protect their boys and do those things. So people need to understand this. We're not lobbyists when it comes to this. So in September 2010, we were actually asked to look at Wi-Fi in schools. And I said, what the heck is Wi-Fi? And as soon as they told me, well, here's what they're doing in classrooms, I immediately said, you can't do that. And they said, why not? And I said, you're going to electromagnetically induce that room. People have to understand this. Radio frequency, EMFs, is an electrical circuit. It's just, and we use EMFs, say, for 60 hertz to provide electricity. These guys are using EMFs to provide radio frequencies for communications. It's an electrical circuit, and we're extremely qualified with this. So as soon as we heard about Wi-Fi in schools, we said, you can't do that. You're bathing the classroom with with a router. I said, you're putting the children inside that electrical circuit so they can communicate with their laptops and do those things. Well, imagine this, when we had to dig into it from there, saying, listen, there has to be codes, there has to be standards related to this. And this is for everybody. This is so important to everybody, and they need to share this with their lawyers and even the FCC and these guys across the board because they're going to go to jail. You can't do this. And here's why. For me to look into codes, and Sandy, you know this specifically, we don't have a building code that says, listen, buildings are falling down, but Sandy, you as an architect, just keep building and we'll figure it out later on. We don't have an electrical code that says, listen, things are blowing up and we don't know why, but you guys just keep doing what you're doing. For me to read Safety Code 6, which is the same science standards used around the world without exception, for that code to say this, we don't understand causality and biological plausibility linking these frequencies to adverse health effects. But as soon as we find out, we'll change the code. So the idea that these guys even moved forward with a code that was missing causality and biological plausibility immediately brought up alarms because I said to a lawyer, I said, you would never advise somebody to move forward with this technology because you're not going to be able to turn it back. You're going to be so entrenched in your lives.
Right here? I have a clarifying question. Is that okay? Can you describe to us what Safety Code 6 is, what it literally says?
Safety Code 6 is
in Canada, correct? Or is this
Safety Code 6 is Health Canada, the Government of Canada's safety code related to the limits of human exposure to radio frequencies. Now, here's what's most important. When I cross-examined a utilities experts in front of the BC government and the BC Utilities Commission, here it is, Dr. Skolnikoff. You might have heard of this guy from the Exponent Group. I said, the specific absorption rate in Safety Code 6, what is that? And he said, the specific absorption rate is the standard used by Canada, the FCC, and everybody used around the world, without exception. So the idea that everybody used a code and moved forward with a code that said it was missing causation is just deplorable, because here's what the code says for real. The power of the code is this. Don't electromagnetically induce people. It says this. Experimental studies show that this will lead to nerve and muscle depolarization. So imagine the way you open up your car door. That means it's a neurological trigger. That means it can trigger nerves. Imagine triggering nerves with a portable device or an EMF, and triggering muscles. And here again, I'm going to roll this over into when we cross-examine the Fortis BC's experts and the Exponent Group, Dr. Bailey. I said, does your nervous, hormonal, and immune systems work together at the same time? And he said, yes. It means that all three are being compromised at the same time. But here's the trick. They said, Curtis, even Fortis engineer Mark Warren, listen, he's such a for an engineer, he's an idiot. And I look forward to him or anybody else calling me on this, because Mark Warren said this. Curtis, we take exception to you saying that we're going to irradiate people and hurt them. I said, can you be 10 feet from the meter and safe? He said, you can be 20 centimeters away from the meter and safe. Now, here's the important part of this. When we contacted Health Canada as the authority and said, what did you guys use for a test with this? What are you guys using? They said, we're using the specific absorption rate. So they put me through the radiology department of this, where the radiation specialist was on the phone. Now, here's what's really important for people, and they need to be angry about this. The specific absorption rate a model is a plastic head with water in it. They put liquid in the top. They put a temperature probe in the top. Cell phone manufacturers have to submit all their phones for this specific absorption rate test, and they'll actually show, here's the plastic head with the phone, here's a bracket showing it. Oh, look at this. We've held the phone out half an inch from the head as per manufacturer specs. Then
okay, wait, I just want to ask you, when was this specific absorption rate determined with the plastic head? What year?
From the beginning. From the beginning. This is what's horrible with this.
So they haven't upgraded their specific absorption rate problem.
No, they based it on a plastic head, and this is why people should be mad. And just let me finish with this, because here's the most important.
Isn't there any time limit on the specific absorption rate?
Well, it's based on 6 minutes exposure for a full-grown man. But here's the important part with this, and that's why this is important to finish this. When they do this test with a specific absorption rate, test for cell phones, imagine this. They do it in a radio frequency sterile environment because they're testing the phone. So when I said to the radiation specialist, I said, how many antennas were talking to that phone when you did that test, and what was their orientation to the field, to the model? He said, we didn't include the antennas. And so guess what that means? They didn't technically scientifically incorporate the routers. They didn't scientifically incorporate the smart grid. Now, here's where this is going to get dirty and uglier as we move along, because here's an example of what's happened with this. The Royal Society of Canada is one example, just revised Health Canada's Safety Code 6. But it was a dirty, polluted process from the beginning, because while they were revising the same code, they were selling frequencies. The federal government was selling frequencies. They were deploying them in schools and daycare and carrying forward with this, as well as with utilities, because this is what this dirty process did. Now, here's the important part. under cross-examination, and these are government transcripts. There is no higher legal precedent for anybody out there. Government transcripts. When I cross-examined Bailey, they're under oath. I said, Bailey, in order for those frequencies to hurt people, it has to hit them. He said, that's right. There has to be exposure. And that's when Mark Warren got into this and said, we take exception to this. You can be 20 centimeters away. And then I said, are you going to cover 17,000 square kilometers with these radio frequency EMFs to communicate with smart meters? He said yes. Jerry Flynn is a retired captain using radio frequencies in warfare, and it was great to see Jerry pin him down and say this. On a smart meter, and a smart meter is the end-use device. People can't get distracted from this. You're effectively using an invisible wire. Jerry Flynn pinned him down and said, what's the range of that antenna for the grid for just a smart meter, one smart meter? 3 kilometers, which is just over a mile. So when they say, listen, you're safe close to your meter, listen, one antenna is radiating people within a mile depending on what type of grid they're doing. Texas Encore said one Wi-Fi router was covering, or smart meter router was covering 5 square miles, a collector 125 square miles. But the thing is, now you've got causation. Causation is, oh, you left out the grid. This is how people are being hit. You left out the routers. You left out the antennas. This is causation showing how you're electromagnetically inducing people. In electromagnetic induction, people have to understand this. Even when the utility, they're so polluted and so technically ignorant, they said, we take exception to your saying that we don't, what you're talking about is a hypothesis. We use electromagnetic induction to generate electricity. And here's something that happened here in the Okanagan. We had a lineman killed. He's working on a dead line running parallel to a live line. They didn't ground that dead line out properly so that when the live line is inducing an electrical charge into that dead line, the ground provides a path so that they don't get killed. They made an error, and guess what? It killed that lineman immediately. Now, and so here's that important part. Guess what? Biological plausibility, when they said biological plausibility is missing, they dismiss Ole Johansson, they dismiss David Carpenter, they dismiss every medical professional, they dismiss the bioinitiative report. And you know why? The plastic head doesn't have any biology. It doesn't have a heart, it doesn't have a frequency, it doesn't have an eye, it doesn't have anything. It's ridiculous that they even use this thing. It should be used as an aquarium. And I say that because it just makes me angry because, and here's that important part too, when people are saying, Sandy, some are sensitive and some people are not sensitive, and why is this? We're all different. We're all different sizes. We're all different shapes. Our orientations to the fields, and here's the strength of Safety Code 6. It says this. Exposure depends on your orientation to the fields, the size, the electrical properties of your body, et cetera, et cetera. So when people say here, how come I'm not hurt? It can simply be your orientation to the fields that can do this. You know, you're turned differently. And here's why I'd say this. Dr. Lynch called me out of Florida, and he said, everybody in this one community has got insomnia. He said, how is that possible? And I said, I know this sounds horrible. I said, but I want you to tell them to turn their beds. I said, so they're not orientated to these electromagnetic fields. And I said, that will alleviate the pain and their suffering. I said, but this still has to stop. And so here's an example. Fortis, BC is going to irradiate 5 cities to use this to talk to smart meters. And guess what? Everybody in the city, without exception, is being radiated to different degrees. Everybody is being electromagnetically induced. And here's another reason why we warn them. When you induce currents, and they admit they're inducing currents into people which should have set off alarm bells, currents are how we get electrocuted. I've had currents induced into me and burnt holes in my body, and thank goodness you didn't get killed by it, but you're inducing currents. Now, when you induce currents, you're changing cellular voltages. Ohm's law is this. Ohm's law, electricity. Volts is equal to amps, or current, times resistance. So you induce currents, which is power density. So the higher the power density, the higher the currents, the higher the cellular voltage will increase. Now imagine biologists saying this to me, which was and they said this in a forum where you can actually see it on the video. They said it is biologically known for decades that an increase in cellular voltage of 0.2 millionths of 1 volt, 0.2 millionths, which is nothing electrically for this, changes white blood cells. Now you've got, it changes white blood cells, and then these guys say it's affecting nerves, hormonal, and immune systems at the same time. Any medical professionals out there, answer this question. What happens if a child's nervous, hormonal, and immune system isn't working? And the bottom line is, you're dying, or there's horrible things going on. Now, I want to do this, and here's why this is important as well, because this had to be pinned down in that legal format, because when I cross-examined the utilities experts, I was there for one reason. They were going to technically qualify their program, or we're going to technically pin them down. And here's that important. We were there to pin them down on causation, biological plausibility, which immediately changes the code. So with this, the Fortis engineer said, Curtis, we dispute what you say with these EMFs doing what they're doing. So I went after the electrical engineer and I said, what are the frequencies associated with Fortis's grid for the infrastructure? I said, as well as the Wi-Fi component. He said it's a 900 megahertz frequency for the antenna, connecting the buildings together, doing those things. And it's a 2.45 gigahertz Zigbee chip or Wi-Fi for inside the building. I said, isn't that 900 megahertz going to oscillate, which means it's changing direction, 1.8 billion times per measurable second? Aren't those oscillations happening? Now, when you think about these oscillations, think about this. If you could take a car and flip it end for end, 1.8 million times a second, what do you think is going to happen? Your wheels are coming off. That thing's going to melt. So when they say this doesn't break DNA, this is going to rip your body to shreds. Now, when I said to him about the 2.45 gigahertz, I said, isn't that 2.45 gigahertz going to oscillate 4.9 billion times per measurable second inside body? Isn't it going to oscillate? Yes. That means it's doing that inside walls, Sandy, where we talked about this affecting buildings. Well, you can't induce buildings like that and vibrate them like that because you are causing molecular vibrations. And here's an example in Canada. Our code rule is 4.1.3.6 called vibrations. We design a building for vibrations. It's applicable across Canada. You're going to have the same thing down there, and this is why you can't do that, because you're affecting infrastructure, all the above. You're electromagnetically inducing currents into people, into a baby, into a fetus, and all the above. And here's something I want to say, too. One of the things we did with our departments are this. And, again, we're not here to beat people up on this issue. It's just we report in our capacity. Everybody's heard of solar EMFs, how they burn you, and how they can do this. Well, here's the reality and why they put in this smart grid. We got real energy problems. And, Sandy, you know this. Buildings are designed and insulated for very specific temperatures. And that's why we'll insulate that building, and we'll put in a heating system to accommodate that. And the code says this: watch out for solar EMFs. Now, you imagine this. The United Nations members have put together hundreds of billions of dollars to address climate change. And climate change means this: mankind is not supposed to heat the atmosphere with what we do. Natural heating, natural evolution is normal or doing those things. We're not supposed to heat the atmosphere. We're supposed to blend in. And here's another code rule with Canada. Code rule 1.1.3 point is climatic and seismic data, meaning we design buildings differently in the Arctic than we do in the South. Now imagine this, and again, here's what contradicted my own education, because we were blind to temperature. Sandy, you know this as an architect. You design a building, you put everything together, everybody signs it off as compliant, you take responsibility, but nobody could see anything. So when they asked us to image buildings in solar radiation, it shocked the heck out of me. Because how many people have leaned against a car, leaned against a building and burned yourself? In Kelowna, British Columbia, in Canada, we documented building skin temperatures 204 degrees Fahrenheit on a 95-degree day. The UN members are worried about the UN members are worried about a 7-degree rise in atmospheric temperature because of this weather severity. California's going through this stuff where yesterday they said, hey, this drought's costing us over $2 billion. California buildings were some of the buildings we imaged because we imaged buildings in 7 provinces and 26 states. California buildings with solar radiation because of absorbent finishes on the exteriors of buildings are generating extreme atmospheric heat. And because here's what happens is when the building's not insulated for those extreme temperatures, the heat's transferring inside the building where they said, boy, we're really hot in here, so let's put in some air conditioning. Well, air conditioning is really like calling pharmaceuticals medicine. Air conditioning is refrigeration. It's the same thing inside a freezer. And we would never put heating and refrigeration in the same application. Now, one group said, Curtis, do we have to make the walls thicker? No. We've got wonderful groups out there that are using cool roof technologies, different membranes on the outside. Take a look at whitewashed buildings in Europe. And do you know why they're white? They reflect solar radiation. And they don't use any air conditioning. You look at North American development, the way we've just raged through, and politicians and special interests allowed us to just build this massive development and build it fast. It's dark, absorbent materials, and it is horrific what it's doing because, listen, here's the reality. We're changing hydrological cycles where we are really doing that. And imagine this. An air conditioner per building is using thousands and thousands and thousands of watts per hour responding to the symptoms of the exterior being radiated. So while the UN and the U.S. and everybody else is saying, listen, we've got to reduce emissions, imagine putting millions of people to work immediately addressing this issue, millions of tax-paying jobs simply addressing the exterior buildings that are exceeding their design temperatures. You know what you would do if you knocked, here's an example here in the Kelowna area. They're wasting billions of watts responding to the symptoms of solar radiation with electrical energy waste, and they're billing you based on a 2-tiered system, so they're billing you a premium. If you took care of the exterior of those buildings, and if they even informed architects would jump on this and deal with it because that's what they do. Engineers would do the same thing. Imagine knocking 1 billion watts off the grid immediately. You've already met your climate change objectives. It is what it is. But people have to remember this. You take a look at the National Weather Service and their satellite loop and watch the winds move across the land. You'll see, oh, look at that. Texas buildings are superheating the atmosphere, and the winds today are blowing into California where they're changing hydrological cycles. Oh, look, the winds have changed direction. And remember this, once you generate heat, you can't get rid of it. It's here to stay. And everything in existence is temperature sensitive. So when forestry says, and hydrology said, we want you to look at riparian areas related to salmon spawning. I said, what's the big deal? And I said, please don't tell me that the salmon are temperature sensitive. And they said, of course they are. So here, imagine this. We're heating this atmosphere. We're heating this water. And we're really creating a hell on earth. But here's what's more important when people are there, including utilities. I hope some of the utility guys are listening. I hope some administrators are listening because here's the bottom line. Smart meters are not addressing 1 watt of this. They're responding to the symptoms. They're reacting to the symptoms. They will not save 1 watt. But here's the worst part. Fortis BC, as an example, says this, admits under cross-examination, we're going to electromagnetically radiate 17,000 square kilometers or 6,564 square miles with 900 megahertz frequencies. And guess what that means? You're going to cause atmospheric heating. You're going to heat, and that in itself is affecting climate change. Imagine this where it's killing, imagine this, trees, you're changing voltages in trees and greenery, so this is changing trees where it's killing them. And now these forest fires are raging through here where, we're surrounded here and there's forest fires, there's fires closed. Yesterday, I heard somebody said, Curtis, they had to put down a bunch of horses and cattle and different animals because of smoke inhalation. Nobody can see what they're doing. And it just makes me angry that because here are political interests here are political interests taking precedence over the people. And here's what's important. Policy, government policy, is based on science, not politics, not special interests. So when I say this, here's the horrible part about this for you guys out there, but you need to hold us accountable. When causation is found, they said they're going to change the code. September 14th of 2010, causation and biological plausibility was reported to Health Canada by Canadian professionals. I was that reporting professional, but my opinion is not singular by a second. October 26th, 2010, at the request of Canadian Parliament Standing Committee on Health, causation and biological plausibility, showing how the frequencies were hitting people and the plastic head. No kidding, it doesn't have any. There's no biological plausibility. So that was reported. From there, this got ramped up into medical education, where January of 2011, causation and biological plausibility was lectured in accredited medical education for education credits required for ongoing medical licensing and applicable in both countries. Listen, it means this. It's not an argument. This is accepted medical education. And for the people out there, I can't apologize enough.
Well, I agree. I agree. What you said is so important, Curtis. So,
we're not supposed to hurt people. We're not supposed to use them. You guys imagine this. You're not sensitive. You're not sensitive to these EMFs. You're part of a conductor now. You're inside the wire. The wireless, the FCC is using you as a conductor for radio frequencies. They're using birds, bees, buildings, and all the above. And even when they said, Curtis, the rates are up, rates are absorbent, I said, you're going to hit bees and buildings, and I said, you're going to hit these tougher, more resistant things. I said, they might be charging you for the resistance of your body in that circuit. And that's why you cannot do this. And here's why we warn these guys. And Sandy, you can appreciate this more. When I say to Fortis, BC, your buildings, every building in your jurisdictional area is going to be in non-compliant with 4.1.3.6 of BC and Canadian Building Code specific to this, which means it's not going to get a mortgage. It's not going to get insurance, which means you're going to lose the tax base. You know, you're going to lose every aspect of this. You're going to lose your investment. You can't let guys do this. And again, when these guys said, Curtis, we're just transmitting a couple of times, a couple of minutes a day or doing those things, I said, is the grid on 24/7? Yes. That means you're getting a 24/7 dosage of electromagnetic radiation, and there is no margin of error. Now, this can be stopped, but here's the important part of this with people, where they said, Curtis, this physicist disagrees with you. And I said, he's not electrically qualified in any opinion. EMFs are an electrical interaction first before they hit buildings, where you incorporate architects and engineers and say, oh, this is how you substantiate that building is being hurt. Now, people need to think about this too. This is also causing high-speed vibration of fire separations in buildings. So you imagine, it's not protecting you. Sandy, imagine taking a fire separation, drywall, and shaking it violently, billions of times per measurable second. It's coming apart. So not only are you endangering the residents and the owners of those buildings, you're endangering firefighters. That's separate of the utilities. When they put in these smart meters, guess what is listen, Canadian Electrical Code is published by Canadian Standards Association. You know, the first code was 1923. This is the government again. And imagine this, they've undermined Canadian Electrical Code, which is those standards, because they got a bunch of pizza delivery boys to mass install these meters everywhere. You don't swap meters under load under any circumstances. You do not do this. You've got fragile electrical components inside that meter. You're going to inside that meter base. You've got connections that have never been maintained, and connections are the biggest electrical failure that we've ever done for every industry. We go in there and it's just part of a cycling. So when these guys are changing those meters under load, depending on how much you've got plugged inside there, listen, that's causing surges inside the building where it is blowing up your appliances. It is creating these problems. you're causing arcs that are further compromising these components inside the meter base. And when people say, Curtis, it's the meter causing all this problem, guess what? You've got connections in there that are so fragile. And even tomorrow, here's an example. I'm going to be intervening in a utilities application to install a meter, because here's the bottom line with this. The meter base belongs to the homeowner. The meter base belongs to the building owner. It is not the utilities meter base. Their authority ends its supply, the drip loop on the mast. The meter is theirs. They have the right to read their meter. But as soon as they say, if they said to me, Curtis, we want to remove that meter, you immediately have to incorporate the homeowner's electrician in this. Where an electrician is going to say, listen, we've got a protocol set for this. If we have to change the meter base, we will, because these are old and fragile connections. But we would never allow these guys to just simply say the utility's taken over electrical workers' work. It's not done like that. But this is what's happened as a result of, a weakened professional gene pool and these guys moving forward. And here's a horrible part. Our job is to protect fools from themselves.
Right. So the smart meters themselves, when the electric company goes onto somebody's property, they're allowed to go on the property to read the meters. They're not allowed to go on there to take the meter off to install a smart meter, but they seem to be able to do that, and they're doing that all over the place. But now you're saying that when they do take off the smart meter, the currents are still going through at we don't know what kind of a pace. And the surges are already going through there. So if they're installing a smart meter on a property, it's presenting all kinds of electrical problems while they're installing it because they're not turning any electricity off. Is that right? Am I right about that?
No, listen, 100%. And if somebody would have said to me, listen, I've worked with live electrical, and I've done some crazy maintenance where, listen, as electricians, depending on where you've worked and what you've done, you have to work with live electrical no matter what. My specialty was, heavy industrial, oil field, explosion-proof, mines and mills and everything else. I've actually been with a crew, and we had to stand in water in an underground mine because the mine was flooding, and we had to get the pumps going. And so you're standing in water and working on live electrical, and I'll tell you what, there's no margin of error for mistakes or everybody would just be killed. But if you said to me, Curtis, pull that meter under load, I'd say absolutely not going to happen, not just specific to me being hurt, but it's going to be specific to you're going to cause arcs and surges inside that building. You're going to compromise those people there and put them at risk. Now, you've heard of this where, in California, here's an example, hundreds or thousands of meters blow off the sides of buildings because of a power surge. A truck hits a pole, high voltage line, that travels back, the utilities protection doesn't pick it up, all of it goes into the buildings. Well, even the fire guy said, we don't understand this. Some buildings weren't touched and others, the meters blew off the buildings. Those are the buildings with the compromised connection because that's the weakest point of that electrical circuit. You can't do that. And you can't do that across the board. And here's why we warn them about this, because here's the reality. Fortis BC has already installed, what have they installed here, 100,000 meters, whatever the case may be. Here's the reality. You've effectively pulled 100,000 buildings off the real estate market. You can't sell a building that's compromised, it's got a fire threat in a meter base, that's going to have these EMFs going through walls. Imagine that, here's an example with the city of Cologne as one example. These guys have ignored, they're so technically overwhelmed with this that the city hasn't paid attention to, listen, you have to now design buildings for those vibrations and those EMFs, which means MRI chambers, but construction all across North America, Canada, wherever else they're doing this, they haven't accommodated for that. Imagine this, when I see those sinkholes, somebody said, can that be attributed to? And the answer is yes. Skolnikov, there's exponents, electrical engineer, under oath, said we did document 900 megahertz going into the ground. And I said, how deep? I would have been thrilled to hear him say any depth. When he said, depending on soil conditions or what you're going through, he said 39 inches. So you imagine these 900 megahertz. You imagine 900 megahertz, going into a bridge. Here's a concrete bridge. You're electromagnetically inducing that. You're jackhammering the heck out of that infrastructure. Where, here, imagine this in schools. You're not just electromagnetically inducing children. You're affecting those fire separations, those buildings. You're going to affect museums. People with wealth better understand this. You can't hide your art from this. This will destroy your art. You can't put this through museums. Imagine this going to when someone said out of Ontario, here's Diane Knight says, Curtis, what is this going to do to our power plants? And I said, oh my God, you can't do that because, here's a nuclear power plant, and guess what you're going to do? You're going to cause radiation of that infrastructure and chip away at the building, plus you're going to be affecting things inside the building where people need to consider this. Emissivity is the ability of something's the ability to absorb energy. So emissivity goes from 0 to 1. That's it. So concrete is very absorbent. 0.9. Humans, very absorbent. 0.94, 0.96. Polished silver might be 0.07, more reflective. Titanium, like when they put in a titanium joint or do those things, it's going to be reflective. So these EMFs are going to go through there. They're going to bounce off some things. They're going to be absorbed by others. And here's another thing with this. When we wire a place, and here's a sad thing with this, one, they'll actually tell, listen, you're trained to do this. When you're working in these places where there's H2S gas, when there's gases there, when you're working, it can be even in a granary where they've got this fine dust floating around. We wire that to be explosion-proof because the last thing you need is a spark of any particular kind because it'll blow the place up. When we wire a refinery, you'd be amazed that guess what? If we have an electrical explosion or a failure inside the electrical systems, we wire that and construct that so that explosion is confined to the equipment so it doesn't blow the place up. Now what these guys are going to do is, and imagine this, what these guys are going to do is, Fortis BC says, hey, we're going to cover 6,564 square miles, whether you like it or not. So here again is Skolnikov, and I said, can't you induce electrical charges that could cause explosions or fires? And for him even to say, it's possible but not probable. That means I work for the exponent group, so I've got to just keep selling out for that system, but the bottom line is for an engineer, he knows better. You can induce an electrical charge into something where somebody can just walk along in a lab where they're cleaning something or doing something, and just like you walk across a carpet, and you're going to have that spark. Remember this, lightning is a discharge. That's exactly what that is. So what they have done across the board is undermine. Imagine Texas. Here's Texas, oil field. Here's their gas stuff. West Texas is a fertilizer plant blow up. They still don't know what caused it. And guess what? You have to think about this. California has had gas explosions. And here's another thing with these ignorant idiots. Fortis BC, well, they're saying, Curtis, we're disputing this. Imagine this, they dismissed electricity as science, but they're an electrical utility. They dismissed medical education. They didn't disqualify anybody. They dismissed every medical professional reporting for the Citizens for Safe Technology. They dismissed everybody. Fortis BC and BC Hydro both own gas utilities. So these guys don't understand this. Their electrical division is endangering their gas division, where not only will they kill the workers in their home, their families, and affect their buildings, you're going to induce charges where even when these guys are working at a gas leak, you can imagine these poor guys are suited up. Here you got a pipe that's leaking. That gas is just peeing out of that thing even slow. That movement of the gas is enough to set up a charge, let alone here are these high-speed EMFs blanketing California, blanketing these areas where it's looking for a place to discharge, and all of a sudden this is going to kill gas workers. This is going to undermine their gas division, and guess what? They're unionized, but they didn't consult or inform them either.
How much worse is it now than it was, say, 6 months ago in terms of your expert knowledge, in terms of the EMFs, in terms of
for me it's shocking. For me it's absolutely shocking because the idea that these guys would move forward, and here's an example. You've got administrators that are so entrenched with this and so ignorant that they don't understand what's going on. They said, hey, if I stop this now, I'm going to look stupid, so we'll just carry forward and kill people at the same time. What they don't understand is this, and here's an example of this. The Auditor General of Canada, their job is to audit the government, to audit the federal government. And under the Auditor General Act as one part of it, there's a section called Sustainable Development. It simply says this: you cannot impact future generations with what we do today. The environment, the economy, and everything we're doing has to work together. Now, so guess what? These auditors are going to get involved, and these bigger departments are going to get involved. Now, here's a sad reality, and this happened here because we contacted the Attorney General's office, which is the policing arm in British Columbia, and I said to the minister's assistant, I said, I want to file a complaint, I said, under a few different areas. And I said, one is, I said, people are going to a police station, an RCMP station, and saying, listen, I'm being hurt by these EMFs. I don't want them on my property. And guess what? The RCMP have told them, get out of here. Get out of here. We're not taking those complaints. When I actually talked to the Attorney General's office, the assistant said this to me, Curtis, are you associated with the Freeman Group? And I said, what is that? And that's this radical group of people that say, we don't have to pay taxes, we don't have to do anything the government say, there are no laws. And doing those things, I said, no, of course I'm not associated with them. I said, we are codes and standards. And she said, are these hundreds of people complaining about this also part of that group? And I said, no. These are nurses, doctors, electricians, lawyers, hard-working people of all particular kinds, but they've been dismissing them because they didn't understand that interaction. Now, it's important for people to do this when you're talking to your police department, is to say this, because these guys, just because they don't understand the crime doesn't mean they don't have to investigate. But if you said to a policeman, listen, I'm going to go over to the neighbor's place and just tase him, and I'm going to tase him again and tase him again, and I'll tase you guys when you show up, they would tell you, we're going to respond with lethal force. You can't do that. You can't do that for all the reasons in the world. These guys are blasting high-speed EMFs across your property lines, and you can call it tasing, but the real word is they're electrocuting you subtly. You're inducing currents into people, and you can't do that. And that's why even the police forces need to understand this, is that, listen, people aren't electro-hypersensitive. These are the ones that brought these issues forward so long ago and, quite frankly, were ignored. But the real word is, listen, everybody is impacted by this without exception. And here's the most important part. For those greedy people or anybody that's denying this, you better understand this. When there is no agriculture, listen, you're out of work. When there's no buildings, you're out of work. When there's no jobs, you're out of work. There's going to be no money. There's going to be this, and governments are going to have to be volunteers again. Because how are they going to get paid these excessive wages when nobody can work anymore? Because you're going to kill these things, or it's not going to be compliant. So when you're talking to your police force, it needs to be explained like that. And again, imagine this, my opinion is not singular. They didn't tell electricians what they were doing. They didn't tell plumbers. Even Mark Warren, under cross-examination, I said, did you consult anybody on what you're doing? He said, no. I said, do you think it would be a good idea? No, I don't. So imagine this, Sandy, and this is what I said to you, and this is what I'm saying here, and people better understand this for real if you're a professional. When you induce currents into somebody as an example and change that biological voltage, you know what that means? You're changing their biological voltage. So guess what? A biology degree is no longer applicable. When you're radiating buildings, and Sandy, you and I discussed this, my education is no longer applicable. Neither is yours. Because all of a sudden academia and engineering has changed across the board. Oh, you're radiating agriculture and it's all dying. Oh, you're doing this and you're doing this. This blanket radiation is affecting everybody without exception. And people better understand this, and academia as well. You're going to have to close down because your degrees are no longer going to be applicable across the board. Now, here's the worst part, and we don't talk about this because when I get calls from people that say, Curtis, they're laughing at me, but I see these things. I know they're attacking me. They're targeting me all the time. They're doing this, and I'm listening to people talk more and more about this. You imagine this. You're interfering with people's nerves. They admit this. Even Bailey said with their application, with Fortis's application, Curtis, We're supposed to avoid that neurological stimulation, but he didn't understand how that was happening. So imagine this, stimulating nerves and affecting how people do things. You're going to give excuse for crime.
Right.
Because what are you going to do? People are going to be able to say, listen, I was neurologically interfered with, and here's what I did. And here's what I did. And we don't want to do that across the board. And here's separate of this. And again, this is something really horrible to think about. I said, well, you imagine this. These guys are putting you inside an electrical circuit. They're putting your children inside an electrical circuit for communication. They're radio frequencies for communication. So imagine a classroom. And imagine even as you get older and you could do other things. So imagine a classroom where people are watching different things on the internet, whatever it is. Imagine an abortion video going through the belly of a pregnant mom. Imagine how does this electronic information interfere with our incredibly electric, sensitive bodies specific to this issue. You've got all this electrical data, O's and ones, binary codes, O's and ones, crashing through people, and it's interfering with their thought processes. And so it's just so incredibly dangerous when they say, oh, the grids, here, imagine this. What is this place called where they, there is some agency where they okay these technologies, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they call wireless innovative. Radiation of people isn't innovative. It's ridiculous. All you've done is say, hey, we don't have to wire the world anymore. Look at this wireless stuff. It's really easy. We don't have to do that hard stuff. Instead of this, our planet works off a magnetic field, not an electromagnetic field. And people need to understand this too. This is an assault on creation and all life in it. And so even Florida species expert Mr. Bailey, when he said this, he said, I said, what about bees and pollinators? And he said, they adapt. I said, is that in your risk assessment report? He said, no, it's just a personal interest. You can't do that for all reasons in the world. It's just horrific. Now, here's what's important, too, for electrical engineers. And, again, the reason we warn them, for electrical engineers out there, you've got to think about this. IEEE, electrical engineers have errors and omissions insurance specific to, there was an error or an omission. So when I cross-examined Skolnikoff, one of the things I wanted to get at him was this. I said, if there was critical information missing from your report, I said, would you revise that report? And he said, it would be my duty as an electrical engineer to do that. And then I said to him, now you imagine this. People think about this. How many frequencies in a body? You think about every cell, everything's vibrating at different frequencies. Every atom and molecule is vibrating at different frequencies. Then you've got the systems of your body working at different frequencies. Your organs run at different frequencies. Someone said, Curtis, here a brain is 8.3 hertz. 8.3 hertz. And that's 8.3 cycles per second. So you think about all of this, and here's the important part. I said to Skolnikoff, pick two frequencies. What happens when you mix two frequencies? Never mind trillions. He said, you mix two frequencies, you get 4 resultant frequencies. It's just a reality. You're going to get the sum of those 2 frequencies, which isn't going to be recognized. It's just like when people think this is, you ever been on a radio station where you're just off by just a little bit, so you just turn that dial. Well, you think of, organs in your body or parts of you where, listen, they're just not on the right frequency to do their job. This is catastrophically horrific across the board, and we just can't do this. And people need to know this. Now, Frank Clegg is out there. Now, here's the sad part. When people said to me, what's the saddest part of this for you? And I said, the saddest part of this is for me with the government not doing their job is, I said, I've had to spend millions of dollars fighting Citizens for Safe Technology. I've had to spend millions of dollars fighting people that are saying, hey, Curtis is way off there in La La Land someplace, and instead of, guess what? Here's Frank Clegg. Now, Frank Clegg is a former president of Microsoft in Canada, and he actually said this to somebody. The burden of proof would cost millions of dollars. Well, guess what? The burden of proof is causation and biological plausibility, which has been found, and the millions of dollars have already been spent. People need to understand this. This needs to go into court, because here's what they're going to have to do, even the FCC. The FCC is going to have to take in a plastic head and qualify that as science. You're going to take in biology, electricity, engineering, and all the above. And it's just going to be shameful to see a judge's or a jury's face saying, here's the plastic head they're using to substantiate the safety of this technology. Now, here's the sad part about this. And again, listen, I say this without malice. When we wire something, listen, we're not prejudiced in any way, shape, or form. We don't care where you're from or do those things. Sandy, you know that when we're building, we don't say, hey, I don't like these folks, so I'm just going to do some compromises to their buildings. And here's the sad thing, and I mean this. Prime Minister Harper, now here, Sandy, you know this. If you did a design, took some shortcuts, and I was your partner and did those things, and the building fell over and people got killed, we're going to be liable, including criminally. If I killed apprentices working for me because I was negligent, I'm going to be liable civilly and criminally. So when I say this, this is said without malice. Prime Minister Harper, this is the Canadian Premier. Right now, these twits are trying to get reelected while they're radiating their entire populations and effectively undermining the economy and everything else. Now, here's the sad reality. Prime Minister Harper is going to go to jail, and he needs to go to jail, as will some of them, because he's the chief administrator for the country. And while he's the chief administrator for the country, people have died, babies have died, there's mutation, buildings have been compromised like you can't even imagine. Imagine this. Ontario has installed 4.8 million smart meters. That means they've got 4.8 million compromised buildings. That means they've got 4.8 million meter bases that have to be re-inspected and changed and done over again. And that's just there. Florida, over 5 million meters, the same thing. And again, it's just very sad collectively. Now, when I talk about, when we've dealt with, Washington State, the city of Seattle officials are doing those types of things, it just infuriates me that the plastic head has overwhelmed everybody. These administrators have just raged forward with this. But here's one thing I give to people out there. And again, these are the good people out there that said, hey, Curtis, we didn't know. When a government tells you something and you're looking for that, Sandy, you and I both know this. When we got a problem with buildings, electrical, we take it back through our authority-having jurisdiction, 1, to get a ruling, 2, to cover our butts. So when these guys go to their government and say, listen, people are complaining about these frequencies hurting us, and the government goes, listen, they're safe, everybody's done their work, they've done this. You just have to look at an exposure code that actually uses a language that says, hey, we're missing causality, we're missing biological plausibility. Even declassified military documents say this, we don't understand the mechanisms. But here's one document that said, listen, when we radiated monkeys, they internally heated up to 42 degrees Celsius and started acting out, but we didn't understand those mechanisms. And those mechanisms are electrical mechanisms, which requires electrical professionals. And here's that important thing, too. All electricians, now, when people have said, Curtis, we want to challenge you on the electrical part of this, I said, then I want to challenge you. I want you to shut down the government. I want you to shut off the electricity to the province. I want you to shut off the electricity to cities, universities, oil field, and all the above, and to everybody's home. I want all professionals to work and function without electricity. And that's why when they say, oh, you're just an electrician, 1, it's the most dangerous job in the world. 2, we're not all electricians that, go in wire houses. Everybody's got a different speciality related to this. But guess what? We wire the world for particular reasons, and it's to keep people safe. That's just a primary objective with this. So don't minimize that. And your own electrical professionals would understand, what do you mean they're electromagnetically inducing us? Well, as soon as you say, hey, they left out this grid, hey, they left out this antenna that's going to radiate a mile. And here's what people need to think about as well, and here's what's going on here where they're going to go to jail. Pacemaker manufacturer specifications here. Here's a woman that calls us. She's had pacemakers since she was 30. So she goes to Fortis, BC, and Mark Warren. Here's this pompous professional engineer that can't even define his speciality. She said, I've got a pacemaker. Imagine this. The manufacturer specs for the pacemaker say this: stay 2 feet away from an induction oven because it can trigger your pacemaker. Mark Warren admits they're going to cover 17,000 square kilometers, and one antenna is going to cover 3,000 meters. So 2 feet means nothing. It's going to induce a pacemaker. It's going to induce these systems, and it's going to kill people. And what people need to do is and understand this is, they never contacted the pacemaker manufacturers to tell them what they're doing. They never contacted people to tell them, listen, here's what we're doing, and we bypassed all process. And Sandy, you and I both know this. When we contacted our government, first off, I started getting these form letters as a response to these very serious issues. And so I'm contacting them saying, why are you doing this? You know you have to respond to me in this capacity. I'm talking about a building code rule. I'm talking about this. It was as a registered intervener in the Fortis BC application where we found out, here's an example. The BC legislature, here's the government, allowed BC Hydro to bypass all regulatory process to install smart meters and that grid. Where here, if you look up Canadian Electrical Code, a code revision takes 3 years because you've got to incorporate all changes into this. Sandy, you know, when we change building code, that takes 4 years because everybody's involved. They want to know what's going on. Everybody participates. Nobody bypasses regulatory process. So people need to understand this. And I'll tell you what, and here is that important thing with us when they say, Curtis, with the work that you guys have done, you've really saved industry money. We worked for the billion-dollar industries, governments, everybody across the board, saving hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars working for them and their insurers at the same time. We're not lobbyists. The science is there and all the above is there. And this is why when we say this, now imagine this as well. For me to be contacted, when I say me, it's in my professional capacity. When it's my time to sit back and provide tech support, I'll let the painter lead. We don't tell these guys what to do. We're not arrogant in any way, shape, or form. But when Canada's defense minister contacted us and said, we got a problem. After 9/11, we can't see it. And first we're going to have to clear you by the spy agencies and all the above to make sure you're not a bad guy or doing those things. And guess what? To be cleared to consult on a military issue after 9/11. Here's how serious our work is. And again, it was about keeping people safe. It was about just doing a job to keep people safe. That's it. We're not lobbyists of any particular kinds. We don't look for accolades. And even when people thank me, I say, don't thank me for doing my job. I didn't know we had options. You know, you've got all kinds of men and women out there doing their jobs every day because it's their job, and this is ours. We're just a professional troubleshooting group, and, of course, medical education. I'm just honored to be part of that program. But here, imagine this. If I didn't do my job even for medical education, I'll tell you what, Sharon Weinstein is one tough moderator and medical education administrator, but she would kick my butt to the curb in a heartbeat. But so people need to know this. This is lectured in accredited medical education, the benefits of magnetic fields, the dangers of electromagnetic fields. And here's something important as well. Sight of this is really important to the program. I've said this to the Integrative Health Forum founder. I said, would you open up this program to the public or to other professionals? I said insurers. I said lawyers, architects, engineers. I said, and she said, Curtis, it's a medical program. And she said, we would open this up to those professionals and even the public. She said, but there's one condition. This isn't a debate. So somebody can't come into that forum and go, hey, we want to disagree with you. They need to understand this. When we submit a lecture for presentation, that lecture goes in front of a medical board. That goes in front of a committee where that is accepted for lecturing. We have to declare any conflicts of interest. You know, I can't sell products and then go in there and lecture them and then have a tattoo on my head that says, call me and do this. We can actually, we talk about technologies. We don't name them. You know, we use magnetic fields, and again, I don't want to get into this. We've used magnetic fields to stabilize people electrically that were hurt by the EMFs, but it's not a solution. It's not a solution at all. This has to be stopped, and people need to understand this. The law is on your side. This is the government of the people for all reasons in the world, and people have to jump on this. Your health reporters have to jump on this. Your lawyers have to jump on this. And lawyers, are there any lawyers listening in the background? Imagine this. Imagine a contingency. When I've said this, I said this to a lawyer. What's the genetic mutation of a baby girl worth in a lawsuit? What's a genetic mutation of a woman and her eggs worth in a lawsuit? What's the radiation and harm to a child or in their education or otherwise to anything? What's that worth in a lawsuit? And the bottom line is millions and millions and millions of dollars per person. So you imagine a lawyer understanding this. All the lawyers out there, this doesn't have to be proven. It's called electromagnetic induction. There are electromagnetic fields, which is electromagnetic induction. It's that simple. The peer-reviewed science is called electricity. Even judges are going to recognize that. This can go into court right now. And if there's anybody from Michigan listening, now Michigan right now is being very proactive with this. And I just got emails from Dominic, and these guys are doing amazing work in Michigan. They contacted me last week and said, listen, would you, we might need you to provide expert witness for Michigan courts, or pardon me, for the legislature. This is at that level for these guys where they want this stopped. Well, one, they said, we want to talk about an opt-out. I said, there's no opt-out. There's no opt-out. You need an analog meter to measure your electrical use. That's it. You need a meter reader to walk by there and read that. They can inspect that meter and see if there's any problems with that and creating jobs. Now imagine this as well. Fixing this heating issue with buildings, when I talk about creating millions of tax-paying jobs, I'm so very serious with this for all reasons in the world. But Michigan is working on this as well very progressively. Unfortunately, sometimes people go, Curtis, people think you're an alarmist. Let me tell you something. When you work for fire departments and you do those things and things are burning or blowing up or doing those things, listen, I'm not an alarmist. No means no. Stop means stop. I've actually had apprentices where I've slapped them off something and said, hey, when I tell you don't touch that, it means don't touch that. Because I've got a duty, for these guys to go home at the end of the day. And I've had apprentices where I've said, you better not do that. And then I've come back into the room and they're bleeding, and I said, you okay? And they said, yes. And I said, when I tell you don't do that, it means don't do that. There's consequences, and I might have done it to myself. Even imagine as an electrician at that industrial level. I'm right-handed, so they actually teach us this. Once you've wired, now I would wire a big motor control center or wire something else, and the cables are just huge. So when you wire this thing, we've got a rule of thumb that's this. You wired it, it better be done correctly, and you're going to flip the switch. So what they tell us is this, and here's what Curtis would do. You're going to stand to the side of the switch in the cabinet, and I'm going to use my left hand, because if I flip that switch and I've made a mistake and there's an explosion, I will lose that arm instead of my dominant arm.
Wow.
So people just need to understand this. For all reasons in the world, there's no joke about this. People have to understand this. And again, when I say the damage is measurable by the second, there's no solutions where you're going to be hiding places or putting things on walls that are going to work. And even, Sandy, that's why we do buildings the way we do, is to accommodate all of that stuff. People have to just get involved for all reasons in the world because, listen, this affects everybody without exception, no matter how much money you have, no matter who you are. And we've just got to take care of it because we're just causing unrealized damage, and it's just
absolutely
shameful.
It really is.
You can't hurt people and make a living.
You can't, and the fact is
that's why we have to. That's why we have to have a vote. That's why we have to get involved. Even politically. Right now, here are Canadians. Listen, they're so fat and lazy related to a lot of this stuff that there's a lot of people out there that, hey, look at me, I'm doing pretty well. I don't have to get involved with this kind of stuff and doing this. Instead of this, the same administrator who allowed these frequencies to be deployed and killing people is trying to get into office again. But that's not going to happen because
I don't know. A lot of those people are making money. They're the ones who.
No, they're good. Well, the thing is, you and I can't make money and hurt people. Listen, he's going to go to jail. There's no exception to that. You can't hurt people. You know
the
this
thing
too.
is that we also need to we have to get more proof, and we don't know what proof means. What you're saying means proof.
You've got the proof.
But the fact is that the judges are saying that this isn't proof enough. And so that's what happened with Martin Paul.
Well, Martin Paul, here's what I mean.
Yeah,
Martin Paul's not an electrical professional. Martin Paul, listen, with the greatest respect to Martin Paul, and he shouldn't even have to work on this stuff. Here's that important part when this goes to court. When this goes to court, the electrical mechanism has to be substantiated first. That's what has to be substantiated for judges. The burden of proof is there, and the burden of proof is electricity. It's that simple. All of it's there for you right now.
I think whatever you said is very valuable and very valid, but I know that it's not moving ahead as fast as we need it to in order for us to change.
They haven't been told. They haven't been told or informed.
Okay, you're right. So does anybody have any comments or questions that they'd like to add to this conversation? Please press 1 on your keypad, and we'll have some exchanges. So, Roberta, how are you today? Did you have something to add?
Hi,
You're on mute.
I am just so saturated with what I know to be the truth. And I want to echo what you said, Sandy. How do we get Gordon Bennett on 60 Minutes or some really Curtis Bennett on 60 Minutes or some kind of really significant news program, because I think this information, especially presented by an electrical technician who really knows this stuff, cannot be denied. And I would really love to see this. Anybody in your phone audience, Sandy, who has any kind of connections, could please get Curtis Bennett interviewed on some major media outlet. Who do we know?
I want to expand on that. I want to expand on that for you, which is really important too. Is that I am adjunct faculty for accredited medical education. They can contact that health education administrator. And here is the most incredible thing about Sharon Weinstein. Sharon Weinstein is going to utilize her professionals. She's not going to overstep boundaries. She will represent this for what it is, because even right now, she's lecturing the danger of these technologies. When she runs into technical trouble that needs that explanation, she contacts me or she contacts another professional, and they will explain it. So they can put her on there, and they can do this, because they need to understand that. Like I said, it just needs to be explained, because guess what? I don't care if it's 60 Minutes. I don't care who it is. Their own children are being adversely affected. They're being affected, where people are going to the doctor and saying, "Doctor, I just don't feel well. Doctor, I've got this ringing in my ear," and doctors are prescribing a whole bunch of things. The doctors haven't been told what's going on. Neither have the other guys, and these guys don't understand as well. So it's really, like you say, to take it forward and just let people know. And here's the most important part as well. When people said, Curtis, even Fortis, they said, listen, these guys are going to disagree with you and you're not very popular. Our jobs aren't about popularity. I don't have a personal opinion. A personal opinion would be, listen, I wouldn't even share a personal opinion here, because, if someone assaulted me, guess what? I'm just going to go into ass-kicking mode pretty damn quick and take care of that business. But here again with this is, like I said, they haven't been told.
Oh, what was that?
I think we
could be some feedback or.
Okay. So we have another question from Lynn in Maryland. How are you today? Did you have something to add?
Thank you very much, Sandy, and thank you, Curtis. My head is just ready to explode here. I don't even know where to start. It's like I need to process, but I won't do that with y'all. One is to get the message out. What I will say is you can call, like if you listen to a regular program or radio program or something, or even a station or whatever, you can call and request that they do a program on this. But one of the things, and I have a couple things to say, but I want to ask Curtis something. Okay, because I don't drink, and I know most of the people on this call probably have a tizzy fit over this, but I don't buy the climate change piece. Does the climate change? Yes. Is it being caused by man? Yes. Is it being caused by me and you and everybody else? No. That's a bunch of crap, and it's being used against us because the numbers have been falsified for decades. They start out with the wrong number to base their data on. But with all of the antennas and all of the wireless, and because what is the number one industry? What is the number one thing that uses the most power on this planet?
Cell phones.
It is this technology. It is telecommunications, computers, and especially the storage of data. That uses more electricity than anything else. So that is causing the problem. So all of this use, wouldn't that be enough right there to be creating a rise in temperature in the global environment? Because God knows we can't have the poor people in little rural regions in Africa not have a smartphone with use of the internet, so then they can get all upset that they don't have air conditioning in their hut. I heard that 3 times in 1 week. And I just think that it creates its own heat, number one. But number two, a couple things. Remember that all phone service is going off of regular landline phones. It's either going to be backhauled to a cell tower or wireless cell phones. And there will be no 911 service in an emergency. So just so you know. And also, once they do that, the rules for all wireless in the United States changes, and you'll have no recourse with your local utility commission unless there is a judgment and therefore a rule made, which could only be heard by the FCC. You know, there's your catch-22. But I will just let you know, in my area, now I made the mistake a couple weeks ago of saying there were no ants, and my house always has ants. My house is on a slab. Oh, then I saw 2. So, I mean, you could hardly see these 2 little things in my tub. And they were walking in circles. Now, ants, you know, they trail each other, you know, they're organized, they're little workers. These poor 2 little things, they were going in opposite circles and just in circles. And you could barely see them. No ants, no bees, and I've seen 1 squirrel and 1 rabbit. I used to have hundreds of squirrels. The trees, last year I said the trees were half dead. Half of the trees were dead. Trees are dying. We can't live without those 3 things. It is impossible.
You're right. And you imagine this.
Wait, give me 1 more second, please, Curtis, because I'd love to hear you. But one more thing. This technology, the pulse microwaves, is exactly what was being used by DARPA and UK intelligence. And look at people. They are not engaged. They may go to work, but they can't stop looking at their damn phones, tablets, or whatever they have. They might as well just have them embedded in their heads. And they're not thinking. They're not engaged. They're not. They're lacking critical thinking. Somebody tells people stuff, and the propaganda is just beyond belief, and you can't get the news unless you really go hunting for it. And if somebody tells people something, they just accept it. They don't even think.
Well, we've really become complacent. But here's something to think about when you talk about ants, and this is why this is important. People need to understand this. We lose those bugs. We lose those bees. You lose those pollinators. There's no plants. There's no life. It will be the end of life. And here's why people need to take what you said so seriously. Here's a human exposure code based on 6 minutes exposure for a 200-pound man. How much does an ant weigh? And people need to consider this too. When I get calls from people and they say, Curtis, you know, the power density, here's what they're going to do. They're going to lower the power density. I said that means they're going to lower the currents inside you. There is no acceptable power density. But the higher the power density, the more intense that electrocution is going to be. And again, you know, people need to truly understand exactly what you said. This isn't just interfering in killing the ants or doing this. We know that birds have a migratory pattern. They use the Earth's magnetic field to fly north and south. And sea turtles, they wondered why sea turtles can swim 2,000 miles and land within 100 yards or whatever it is of the beach where they were born. They're using the Earth's magnetic field. So when Google talks about radiating the planet with Wi-Fi, well, you've got high-speed oscillating fields. There's nothing migrating that's going to be able to find its way anywhere while it kills them. So what you're saying, again, can't be overstated. And this is, but understand this, there are bigger departments jumping in, because here's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Guess what? There will be no fish and wildlife. Here's forestry. I know,
there but also, Curtis, back in 1986, there are plenty of government documents, and that's the other thing, is all of this information is available to anybody if they want to look for it. Back in 86, there's a compilation of U.S. federal documents, government documents, and it was about spraying the atmosphere with aluminum to propagate radio frequency. Now, we get sprayed daily with God knows what. I mean, always. But they don't use chemtrails anymore now that everybody caught on to that. And then they're saying, oh, but they're not spraying us anymore because they don't see chemtrails. No, they put it up higher and they rain it on you. So, there's a conspiracy here. And we need to wake up to it. And I actually, if you've ever listened to Deborah Tavera, she used to always say, while you are still able. And I think it's getting to the point where people are not going to be still able to think, to act, because, yes, no ants, no bees, no trees, there's oxygen and food. How are you going to survive? And we need to wake up. But you can't live without your technology. We have to have our phones. I mean, even people on this line say that. You got to have it. I mean, hell, all our jobs are being replaced.
You have to use the landline because, listen, here's what's going to happen down the road. As soon as insurers find out and say, uh-oh, this is causing cancer, what insurers are going to do is say, listen, you're going to use this technology. Guess what? We're not going to insure you. You're not going to get covered, and they will jump in for all reasons in the world. Now, something else with the spraying and doing those things. I never would have believed that until I heard more about it. And then the military actually talked about, hey, we tried to do this to control a hurricane, or we tried to do this. Puny little man couldn't fly 100 years ago. So I don't give these guys a lot of credit with being a conspiracy. This is what happens, when we don't have people leading as they should in their capacity, and that they think that man can interfere with this beautiful planet with what you're talking about. It's despicable. It's despicable that they should be doing it. You don't interfere with creation in any way, shape, or form. But here's that more important part of this.
Lloyd's is already doing this. Lloyd's of England is already doing this.
Well, the thing is, guess what? And that's going to be stopped. Listen, these guys are going to go to jail. They're going to be out of office. This has got to be stopped for all reasons in the world, because we're just doing a real crappy job. And you can even see by look at that chemical spill they had in the United States. Never mind the one in the one in China.
That wasn't intentional, give me a break. That's going to turn into a super fun site. EPA, there's no bigger racket in this country. They're part of the whole cabal.
Well, the thing is with this is, and I'm going to disagree with this, because here again is why these guys are so weak with this. They might think that they're doing something. It's the same thing with the FCC. If I was the chairman of the FCC, I would never approve a technology that's going to kill my family. It's going to kill my investment.
Why would you put 5 people in charge? There are only 5 people on the FCC commission.
Well, that's why things are going to change. Things are really, they're going to change because, listen, people have been hurt. And you guys right now, you guys have got senators and governors going to jail. Listen, they're going to be getting a lot more company with this. But you're right about this. People need to step up, and this needs to be addressed, because policy is based on science, and that includes incorporating the right professionals, engineers and professionals across the board to say, hey, you can't do this. You can't dump that atmospherically. You can't put that in water. Because, listen, who lives downstream from that spill, and it will circulate the world where, here, you can be the Prime Minister of China. You're going to poison your own baby. You're going to poison your own fetuses of your own populations. You're going to kill your customers. And here's why, for me, they said, Curtis, do you think it'd be a good business to kill all your customers? No, it's not good for business. We've just weakened that professional gene pool and got these fat little sassy politicians thinking, hey, we're going to pay ourselves all this money while the little peons are working for us. And again, what we have to do is We have to get rid of this weak leadership and have some leadership.
Yeah. I wanted to just add somebody else to this escalating argument and also anger towards what is really happening. And we're also educated on that it's really become a crime because we are educated. Somehow this conference, I hope, will be in the hands of other people to educate others. So I am recording it, but I want to add Allie to the mix here. Hi, Allie. How are you? Did you have something to include?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Pardon?
Yes,
yes, and thank you, Sandy and Curtis. This is quite a journey that we're on, and I want to go back to when Curtis was mentioning about the Washington Department of Health on their Wi-Fi safety in schools.
Okay.
And add to the FCC document because it was at that time when I was working with Curtis and that came to the realization that those studies that they, besides the plastic head, a Washington resident here concerned about that Wi-Fi safety in schools asked them to do a study, and they being the Washington State Department of Health and the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, to review the research about health effects. So they did. They went and those two agencies, they reviewed summary dockets published by the English national or international health agencies since 2007, and a complete thorough review of literature on some of the aspects to human radio frequency, as they said, and all the different fields. And they said none of the 16 documents reviewed found evidence that low levels of RF fields have any adverse health effect in humans. So 16 documents is what those, was it 5 or 8 people in the FCC bases their conclusions on? And we also at that point, too, found that in a Public Records Act request that they were actually blatantly ignoring studies and diluting the draft report and discrediting their assertion that wireless is safe, unlikely to pose a health risk. So let me just add to this, the big problem, as I see it, that we all have is you, Sandy, Curtis, probably almost all of us on this call, we have unplugged from the matrix.
Right.
And we see and we think things differently. And those that are still plugged in, if our education doesn't help to unplug them, Curtis is right. We have got to hold them accountable because if they're still plugged in, they're getting the artificial intelligence.
Right.
So,
I mean, the person in charge
the only way
is Bill Wheeler, who was in charge of the communications industry. They put the people in power that are going to continue harming us. So we don't have any say.
Yeah, well, that's what George Carlin said. He said it's a club. It's a big club, and you and I ain't in it.
Well,
I think that we're in our own
jail.
We're in our own
the technology we have is going to make everybody sick, and the masses are going to rise up against all this stuff because our high technology, our main people are 24/7 in this real powerful stuff, much less the people outside of it. I wanted to mention something here, a little bit on the light side, but something we need to keep in mind. A little music's always good for the soul. Check this out. Rodney Crowell, Crowell, has one called "The Enemy is the Ignorance."
That's right.
Ignorance is the enemy is a name, and it is a super song for our particular situation. So it might be kind of ironic to play that. But I think we're in for a big movement here because all the technology, the main technology people, including a lot of the people at the head of this thing, are going to come down with various problems, and it's just going to become so evident they can't stand it anymore. And that's a hell of a thing to get into, but that seems the way it's going, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, the problem is that if they know about this, what are they doing to protect their family, themselves, and
right.
what happen in the future and how far along in the future is this going to be for us to have a huge catastrophe. As we're sitting here all aware that this is going to happen, we don't know when, and we really do not know how to protect everybody or what to do. We can try to get safe housing, but that doesn't seem to be happening right now. So what are we going to do? What are we all going to do? And the people who are walking around or going to work and whatever, and they're being dulled for some reason. Their minds are dulled. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know where we can all go. I think I have somebody else's hand up here. So I wanted to include Michael. How are you today? Did you have something to add to this discussion?
Is that me?
Yes, that's you, Michael.
Hello? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I was actually able to call into this or not. So I just tried that. Yeah, so I got a couple questions, actually. Oh, wow, bad timing. Can I call back a bit later? Someone just came to the door.
Okay. But we do have to get these tapes, these conferences out to others somehow. I don't know how we're going to educate people. People don't even know what smart meters are. So people don't know what the grid is. They don't know what cell towers are. Nothing seems to affect them. So, I don't know. We have a struggle. Michael, are you back?
I'd like to suggest something for you.
What? Okay. Go ahead.
Sandy, I'd like to suggest something here, and here's what people need to think about. You just had Allie talking there. Now, here's something that's very interesting about Allie, and I like that Allie says this. She's not a politician. She's an elected official. That's the difference. Policy is policy is based on science, not politics. It's those special interests that might hum and haw and do what they got to do. But here's even the thing for me. When people said, you shouldn't talk the way you do, and I said, if I did not report in my professional capacity, I would be guilty and liable both civilly and criminally as well. They just need people to know for real this is happening, and that, this wonderful technology is based on the safety of it is based on a plastic head. And even people need to think about this. How did they use a human exposure code to bypass building codes? How did they use a human exposure code to bypass everything when it's not even applicable? So they've got to deal with this. And again, all the laws are in place. We just got to let those right people know. And what people need to do is, listen, even when people contact me, listen, you have to throw people into the fire on this and let people be accountable. Listen, anybody can call me regarding this. Listen, what I'm going to say is not going to change no matter what. And so the more that know, the better it is. But I want to tell you this as well, like for real. Governments are going to be jumping in, including those policing arms, especially like in Canada across here for real. That's going to happen without a doubt. So, it will go into the United States as well, but it needs to build on all fronts because the damage is truly measurable by the second. So when you actually do this, think about this. When I talked about those high-speed electromagnetic fields, we'll pick the 900 megahertz. That electromagnetic field is expanding and collapsing 1.8 billion times per measurable second, 3,600 times an hour, 86,400 times a day, and over 2 million times per month.
It's absolutely amazing.
And here's what people need. People need to know this too.
Yeah,
look at this stuff where, listen, it mutated chicken eggs in 21 days. They hatch in 21 days. What's it doing to yours?
Yeah, so we have big issues like that. I agree. So, Michael, if you didn't have anything to add, do you have anything to add? Because we have to stop. So.
Yeah, I'm here now. Sorry for that disturbance. So, to Curtis, in regards to the building code, I wanted to ask you, because I have an uncle that owns his own construction business in Alberta, and he builds many houses a year. And I was able to see him a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about building code in regards to the smart meters from Hydro, from what I heard from you. And I told him how Hydro is able to use a human exposure code to permit these meters to be applicable to building code. And his response was that Hydro has their like own set of codes that they use for their meters, and that's separate and not applicable to buildings. They're like they don't intertwine. It doesn't matter, something like that. What do you have to say?
No, 100%. And something you can do with your uncle is this: listen, tell him to contact us, because that code rule 4.1.3.6 point is applicable in Alberta as well. And even though your uncle, like, depending on people's background, I had somebody say, Curtis, I don't understand that, and that's where we met with engineers, and we qualified that electrical mechanism inducing that building and doing those things. So he can contact us. Listen, there is no margin of error with that. And again, here's the important part. They're putting your uncle in a position of liability because he's building those buildings to those design standards without being told, by the way, there's a compromise of that and a compromise of you, and then in turn does he end up with a liability?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell him to contact us.
Okay. You got to make it
clear. Human exposure code's not applicable. So, Sandy, again, we're thermoguy.com, THERMOGUY.com. And you can have us tell him contact us, or he can actually just go in. Listen, our website has got a lot of information on there very specific to this issue. And even if you sign up for the newsletter, it doesn't matter who you are. Listen, there's no advertising. Any post automatically comes to you right away.
What's the website? What's the website again?
Pardon me?
What's the website again?
Thermoguy.com. It's www.THERMOGUY.com. Thermoguy.com.
Great. Okay, listen,
like
we can't go on. We can't go on any longer because we've reached the limit in time, I guess. So I just want to say thank you, Curtis, so much. We look forward to having you join us again. Your information is totally amazing, and the way you put it is totally amazing and scary for people because it's true. So thank you so much, Curtis. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. Everybody have a good, safe week. Bye for now.
Take care. Take care, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sandy. It was wonderful.